When Titanfall came out in 2014 during the first year of the Xbox One's lifespan, it was kind of a mixed bag for me. On the internet, reaction towards it was predictably negative due to the fact that Titanfall was not on Steam or the PlayStation 4. It was only on Xbox consoles and EA's Origin platform. Game journalists were hyped for it to the max, with a box quote saying to believe the hype. Personally, though, I was excited for it during the beta, and I thought that this would be my go-to multiplayer game like Black Ops 2 or Halo 3 was, and like Advanced Warfare is for me right now. And after all, when Titanfall came out, there wasn't a whole lot to play on the next generation consoles either. And while Titanfall lacked a single-player mode, how many people do you see actually playing Call of Duty single-player mode? And then Titanfall launched, and it was literally the same game as the beta was. It came out of the gate lacking numerous features that other shooters like Halo and Call of Duty had made standard, such as map voting, the ability to host your own games, and even the ability to name your own classes. Battlefield 4, another EA shooter, also featured player-rented servers, which is something that Titanfall lacked. And to make matters worse, however, the game suffered from numerous problems the Call of Duty series suffered from. Unbalanced guns and everyone using the same loadouts, Titans being as overpowered as kill streaks, C4 spamming with kids throwing them like grenades, and even some issues Call of Duty rarely suffered from, like frame rate issues and severe multiplayer lag. It also had some strange design decisions like a low player count and smallish maps, while Battlefield, another vehicle design shooter, had high player counts and huge maps along with destructible environments, and you could even blow up a skyscraper and Battlefield 4. Now, at the same time, there was also the Smart Pistol, which is one of the worst weapons in any multiplayer shooter I have ever played, and I have played numerous multiplayer games. The Smart Pistol is like the white Tanuki suit, where it takes a lot of the skill out of the game because it automatically locks onto enemies, and then all you gotta do is pull the trigger. And you know the tutorial that comes with Titanfall, it even shows you how to use this weapon. So they encourage you to use the Smart Pistol to get easy kills. And while updates have added features such as a ranking system, which is very inconsistent and confusing, the ability to name your own classes in private lobbies, the game still lacks map voting and custom servers, which is a big deal considering Titanfall's low player count. Now, Titanfall was so bad player count wise that EA literally gave away the season pass for free to everyone who plays Titanfall. How many other big multiplayer games from AAA studios do you see that happening with? Despite this, it sold enough to the point where EA decided to make a sequel nobody asked for, complete with a single player mode that was absent from the first Titanfall. So right now the Titanfall 2 beta is out, and I've played enough of it to give my thoughts on Titanfall 2. I'm kind of mixed for it, since it seems like one of those sequels that nobody asked for, but at the same time, maybe they could pull off a Halo 3 and bounce back from a mediocre installment. So is it any good? Now first, I might as well mention that according to Respawn, this is supposed to be a pre-alpha early build of Titanfall 2. 2 months before the release date. I also know from a pattern of other developers, including Respawn, that little usually changes gameplay-wise from the beta to the final version of the game. So when you start the game, you see a pre-recorded video talking about some new features that feels a lot like the Call of Duty movement system trailers and the presentations where they try to explain the game to you. And it also feels like those clips in EA driving games where they're like, hey dummy, this is how the game works, and you can't skip them.
For starters, we're giving you a look at two maps. Welcome to the dense urban streets of Boomtown and the open fields of Homestead. Each poses unique opportunities and challenges for both Pilot and Titan gameplay. Today, we're giving you a peek at one of the brand new modes in Titanfall 2, Bounty Hunt. In this mode, you and your teammates are tasked with clearing the remnant field ground units through 3 waves, earning a bonus for every kill you obtain. Between each wave,
they also show off some new social names and group functionality that feels like something sports games had, with these clan-like groups called networks, and I also noticed Reddit, of all places, was one of them in the video. After watching that, you're thrown into a multiplayer menu similar to that of Titanfall 1. However, there are now longer load times. You can also join networks with names referencing internet communities and epic hilarious internet memes that got old last month, or that died a long time ago. And that's just a warning of what's to come. After joining a network and playing, you realize the first was much better in every way, shape, and form. Let's talk about the gameplay and why I think Respawn designed Titanfall 2 this way. With the bigger selling Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, one complaint by many players online was that players were up in the air quite often, similar to that of the Quake or Unreal series, and you had to aim well to get kills. And this is reinforced by the fact that the A and D keys on the keyboard can be double tapped, just like in Unreal, to dash sideways in Advanced Warfare. While the fast-paced action was in Advanced Warfare's case fun and polished, Call of Duty players did not want that. They merely wanted slowed-down gameplay that took place on the ground, or as the gamers called it, boots on the ground. Titanfall 1 also had other complaints involving the pointless grunts and specters that serve only to distract from real human enemies, which are called pilots by the game, and the fact that at times the action could shift too much towards Titans, and a pilot-only game type was a major request, along with a humans-only no AI game type. And while Titanfall 2 also likely wanted to reach out to Call of Duty players even more than 1 did, and 1 was hyped on the fact that former Infinity Ward developers made it. Kind of like how the first Call of Duty had developers who made Medal of Honor work on that game. So Titanfall 2, instead of correcting Titanfall 1's problems, goes out of its way to feel like a generic 2016 multiplayer shooter, like every other game that wants to be a Call of Duty killer. From the one mode I played, which was the closest to an existing Titanfall 1 mode, which was Domination, the gameplay is completely horrible. The game features the same movement mechanic, however, tweaking the controls was hard when it came to looking and moving around, and the movement also feels smoothed out to resemble jumping in Black Ops 3, and it also feels slower than Titanfall's 1 as well. This is made worse by the fact that gameplay in this game, in general, is slower, and your player character feels heavier, if you know what I mean, considering how you feel slower in Titanfall 2. While Titanfall 1 might have been an over-the-top lag fest with few players, shitty netcode, and lots of casualized bullshit, it at least did some things right. It nailed the feeling of being in a battle in a war zone, and while the grunts were a questionable addition to the game and were no substitute for real players, they at least kept the game moving. You were also able to get Titans easily without even a single kill. While this made the game unbalanced, it also made the game feel like full-scale robot warfare. There were also pop-in video feeds at the side, similar to that of the Star Fox franchise or Dead Space, with voice communication making you feel like you're part of a great big war. And of course, there was the orchestra music, similar to that of a high-budget single-player war shooter that tried to make you feel like you were part of this huge, epic battle, especially at the end of the match. And while it might not have been more than just an average game, it did enough to stand out to have a small following of players, and I think many players of the first hoped Titanfall 2 would fix what the first one did wrong, and maybe give players more options and ways to play as well, similar to what Bungie did with later Halo titles where they were loaded full of game types and modes and everything. Instead, Titanfall 2 feels more like a Call of Duty game. It's far harder to get a Titan, as now you need to fill up the percentage meter on the screen by completing objectives such as capturing points or killing players. And while an update tweaked it, it's still not the same as it was in the first game. Instead of there being a timer that starts when the game begins or when your Titan is killed, there's a point streak style meter. This means that the map feels barren, like you're trying to hunt down players. This is made harder due to the fact that instead of giving you a radar with dots like many shooters give you, you're given an approximate position, resulting in players running around like headless chickens trying to find out who to kill. While the AI is finally, for the most part, gone, meaning you won't waste any more ammo on clusters of bots missing the far more lethal players, the player count and scale of the game has not been improved one bit, as Battlefield provides a full-scale war experience with higher player counts instead of low player counts and bots, which results in a much more natural game compared to Titanfall. The maps feel a lot smaller. While Titanfall 1 had some small maps that were bigger than a Call of Duty map, but not as big as a Battlefield map, Titanfall 2 has tiny maps that are designed mostly for player versus player gameplay, on foot and not in a Titan. There are Titans, but not only are they bigger, but now they are far easier to kill as well, and you no longer have shields. They also fire off far more powerful shots, but at the same time, you are left more vulnerable. If this gameplay design feels familiar, that's exactly the same kind of gameplay design that was used with Modern Warfare 3. To make matters worse, the game feels shorter each round due to the lack of Titans, since it's not uncommon for the entire match to end without a single Titan ready notification, and you'd be extremely likely to get two. You'd get lucky if there were more Titans on the map, and even then they die quickly now. Despite being called Titanfall, the game lacks over-the-top Titan battles. Meanwhile, in Titanfall 1, you'd usually get 2 to 3 Titans a game, and maybe more depending on which burn cards you use. And I noticed Titanfall 2 lacks burn cards as well, instead relying on kill streaks. Outside the Titan, gunplay feels horrible. It's that same generic shoot, die, respawn gameplay that you've seen so often in bad Call of Duty clones or in a terrible Call of Duty title, and it's made worse by the laughable radar that does not tell you where enemies are located. To make matters worse, campers are now a thing, and while Titanfall 1 had some of them, they are literally everywhere in Titanfall 2, ready to attack you the minute you drop a Titan. If anything, the game feels like it was influenced by Modern Warfare 3 or Black Ops 3 when it comes to gunplay, and you can tell since you die far too quickly. In the test, Titan customization is crippled, and now you can only pick a single Titan, which affects more than movement and armor, and choose 2 to 3 abilities, while Titanfall 1 used a created class system with Titans and allowed you to choose from multiple Titan types instead of each class being a different Titan type, and each has a different system with different armor and boosts. Multiplayer wise, aside from the new network system, the game is barren. You get a matchmaking mode select menu and that's it. You don't seem to stay in a lobby like with Call of Duty and instead you get dumped in another lobby, or if you do it, it doesn't show it. Ping counters are absent from Titanfall 2 despite being in the original's ping bars. And did I mention the netcode is still complete garbage with lag everywhere? Map voting is still absent, and like I said, there's now no lobbies, so good luck with that. The best part about Titanfall 2 is that the graphics look pretty good for a Source Engine game. However, at the same time, the frame rate of the game is a bit iffy, especially when aiming down sights and firing, and the art direction is even similar to that of Black Ops 3, complete with the futuristic settings, wider color palette, and frame rate drops when you're aiming down sights. It all feels like I've seen it before, and it doesn't stick out to me at all, and it's even more generic than the first one. All in all, the first Titanfall had some great ideas, but iffy execution thanks to the lack of features, an initial lack of game modes, lots of casualized bullshit like with Modern Warfare 2 and 3, and the questionable choice of engine. Titanfall 2 does what the Sonic series did wrong. It throws out what the last game did right in favor of something entirely new, and fails at it instead of improving on what the last title did, all in the name of trying to reach to the Call of Duty demographic. This is something that many AAA developers have done in an attempt to boost sales at the expense of the people who bought previous games in their series, and this includes EA as well. And perhaps the worst part is, while Titanfall felt like something new in a sea of realistic modern war shooters as its genre stagnated, even if it was poorly executed, Titanfall 2 feels like a Me Too game, like it's trying so hard to be Black Ops 3 and another futuristic shooter, and Black Ops 3 wasn't even the best game I've played. And I know people on Reddit who think that even if they were numerous fans of the first Titanfall, they think that Titanfall 2 just sucked. And they were complaining about the tests left and right. So that's not a good sign at all. All they had to do was take the first Titanfall and fix what was wrong with it, instead of trying to ape Call of Duty. In the end, this means that Titanfall 2 makes the first one look like an amazing game. And the first one was an average game at best, and a game that will make you want to smash your controller at worst. And that's all that needs to be said about Titanfall 2. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and please don't waste your money on Titanfall 2. At least the good part about all these multiplayer tests is they let you see if a game is going to suck before it even comes out, and without having to blow $60 on it just to get suckered when you actually play the game, especially on a platform with no refunds like the PC, or at least where refunds are hard to get.